Coming to you from Reason Alliance Media, this is episode 25, Citation Needed. I'm Miss B. Haven.
And I'm Demanda Wright.
And we're
promoting secular feminism. In this week's episode, we have a Feminism 101 segment on transnational feminism. Miss B talks about asexuality and a sketch, social justice warriors. It's time for Feminism 101, when Princess Sparklefart's luminescent flatulence helps you navigate the mysterious, murky, malcontented world of man-haters. I have a glass of Pinot Noir and I'm feeling good. I'm going to talk about transnational feminism. Zach from the Zacrilege cast sent me a link to a video done by Prager University of Ayan Hirsi Ali and her judgment about the way Western feminists fail to protect women because of a moral relativism that leaves them incapable of telling men of another culture, Muslim men, not to oppress women. I'm already face-palming. Maybe I'll have some wine. It will make my red face feel better.
Are you like Captain Picard level face palming?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
No, she would be drinking Earl Grey.
Hot.
Okay. First, anytime there's a protect the woman argument, you can take that as the back.
Try again.
Anytime.
You realize she's not going to edit that shit out.
No, we're going to edit. I don't want to start over. Can I start over?
No, keep going.
No, I'm starting over.
Just keep going.
I can't because I don't trust you.
That's okay. I
See,
accept that.
you wouldn't edit this at all, and then it would be a long digression of me talking about editing.
Yep.
I don't want to do that. I want to edit.
This is the most entertaining part of our entire podcast.
No, it is.
This is
it
the
is.
part that's funny.
I can't do I need to start over.
We'll start
Okay,
over.
start over. Ready, go.
You're not going to edit any of that.
And you're still continuing, and it's going to get longer and longer.
This is okay. I'm starting right now. I don't care what you people do.
Ready, go.
It's time for Feminism 101. Okay. I'll just start right in the middle, and you can edit out most of that if you would, my friend.
Right.
Okay. Anytime you hear arguments about protecting women, you can take that as the bat signal of conservative bullshit and move right on. Whether it's HB2 in North Carolina, the so-called trans bathroom bill, or the HB2, yes, that one, or the HB2 abortion trap law in Texas overturned by SCOTUS, the primary arguments are about protecting women and children, and they're always about espousing conservative bullshit ideas. Now, instead of conservative religious ideas, we have a version of conservative secularism that opposes or imposes, take your pick, in opposition to post-Enlightenment philosophy, replicating bad arguments in order to correct what they see as liberalism run amok.
You know, right now, in my head, I cannot get this out of there. I'm just going to speak it out right now.
Go ahead, speak it out.
SCOTUS sounds like some kind of venereal disease on the back of my scrotum sac.
Ooh, it does.
Can we really not say SCOTUS?
A pimply testicle?
Something.
SCOTUS.
Would you prefer that we say every time Supreme Court of the United States?
Well, I
We
would
could just say Supreme Court.
I would be okay with Supreme Court.
The ruling by the Supreme Court of the United States. Now we have to say the whole thing every time.
But SCOTUS just sounds so venereal disease-like.
Itchy SCOTUS.
Or you can say that. That sounds good.
Okay, well, we're on to conservative secularism.
Yes.
Opposing post-Enlightenment philosophy, replicating bad arguments in order to correct what they see as liberalism run amok.
Amok.
I feel like I just said that. And doing it
Amok time.
on the religiously conservative PragerU site, which astounds me. In fact, there is a... What? You're giggling.
He's doing stuff
What's
over
he do?
there.
What's
I
he
don't know,
doing?
man. Keep
Amok
going.
time. Go ahead.
It doesn't matter. He's run amok. He is
Oh.
liberalism run amok.
He is.
Yep.
His nickname is Shenanigans. Okay, so in fact, I think there's a distinct locus to this infection in secularism, and it's flowing from the once esteemed Harvard University. Includes such folks as Ayan Hirsi Ali herself, Neil Ferguson, and even some of the evo-psych egalitarian feminist crap from Steven Pinker. This isn't new. You just aren't used to seeing these conservative ideas espoused by an ex-Muslim and woman of color. So first, Ali says clearly that there are two distinctly different sets of values, a West and the rest approach, if you will. She accuses Western feminists of moral confusion and of saying women's oppression is exactly the same around the world. Nobody's saying that. She found a clip of one woman saying that. And so now all feminists are saying women's oppression is exactly as the same around the entire world. I mean, that completely elides the history of feminist scholarship.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that makes me upset.
It
I
is
digress.
upsetting.
Okay. But Ali isn't going to talk about this extensive history of feminists reacting to the oppression of Muslim women and taking actions with Muslim women to combat that oppression, but we'll talk about that later. We're then given a choice of excusing the oppressive actions of Muslim men against women or demanding reform, as if no feminists have ever demanded any reform.
I've never heard of such a thing.
No, it's never
not
happened.
possible.
Shit, I hear it all the time.
It's either this or it's that, and you never do that. Okay. This narrative uses as a representative example the group of sexual assaults in Cologne, Germany by North African men. Ali shifts the response of the victim blaming female mayor of Cologne onto all feminists by calling the mayor a feminist herself. So this feminist mayor did some victim blaming, therefore all feminists are victim blamers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
You agree with that, Cabana Boy? You'll get that later. Because the mayor cautioned women to dress conservatively and stay at arm's length from strangers, all feminists are moral relativists, unable to critique these instances of sexual harassment because they were performed by Muslim men of color.
And some people have longer arms than others.
Yeah. What? And fingers. Don't forget about the fingers. That's the most important part. Underlying this moral relativism argument is an anti-immigration sentiment whose narrative here is dangerously close to protect Western, should we read white here, women from sexually crazed brown men. I'm from the southern United States, so I've heard that argument before. In fact, this story has made the rounds on conservative media like Breitbart, labeling the mayor as feminist and espousing anti-immigration sentiments. Do a quick Google of PragerU, whose mission, they say, is to combat the liberal bias at American universities, and its founder, David Prager, and see all the conservative religious bullshit you can stomach. Feminism has learned some valuable lessons that Ali seems to have missed here. The experience of all women and men are not universal. That's true. I can recognize that and refrain from statements that want a culture war between Western secular values and Muslim values, and at the same time condemn the actions of roving bands of North African men who think it's fine to get a little handsy with the women's. No. I can recognize the problem with the construction of all Muslim women as in need of saving as highly fucking problematic, while lending my support to transnational feminists working to improve the lives of Muslim women. Imagine that. I can do both of those things at once.
Huh.
I am
Multitasking.
talented. Yes, multitasking. Feminists have had both theoretical and activist engagements with issues like Muslim women wearing veils, female genital mutilation, export garment factory workers, dowry deaths, and sex tourism. So those are just a few of the things, of the issues that feminists have been engaged with.
Well, at least they've had work.
Yeah. Like, because what they usually do is make babies and stay at home.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Cabana Boy, go away.
Something about kitchen and sandwiches.
Yeah. Blah. Every fucking podcast we have to talk about the goddamn kitchen.
Go make me a sandwich.
He's always hungry when we're here. Maybe you should feed him more often.
That's really old. It's old. It's just
He's getting low in
it's
pellets.
stale. The
Tomato.
fucking sandwiches are stale.
That's
Get him
'cause you've
some more.
never stopped-
Need to get him
never
some more
made 'em.
hamster
Okay.
pellets, Cabana Boy pellets.
Have there been feminists who were moral relativist and were completely wrong on some issues? Yeah. Some feminists, however, engaged in a bit of cultural relativism to help us Western feminists see the complexities of a debate. That was a good thing. And many feminists have been engaged in activism surrounding these issues. So it takes an astounding level of ignorance about feminism to make these claims. I often think much of the problem comes from feminism being such a good critic of itself. These debates happen within feminism, and somehow bumper sticker-sized slogans are excised from these debates to call for an end of all feminism, when you have feminism engaging in conversation about these complex, important issues and critiquing itself. Honestly, there are some anxieties on the part of Western feminists when we speak about women in Islamic countries. I will readily admit to that. U.S. Western feminism has a history of being a white middle-class feminism whose goals didn't reflect the needs of even all Western women or women in the U.S., much less women of Middle Eastern countries. Since the advent of third wave feminism in the West, many Western feminists have worked to make feminism intersectional. Not to mention, there's also a long history of non-Western feminist activism. I mean, believe it or not, feminism isn't just a Western construct.
Really?
Yep. Learning from this history has hopefully left white Western feminists with a very healthy anxiety about speaking for people with experiences of oppression different from their own. This anxiety means that white Western feminists should listen to people with experiences not their own, and that they stand as allies and amplify those experiences and make them central to the objectives of feminist reforms. However, I readily admit that I often feel anxiety about intervening in a debate about women's oppression in the Middle East, not because of moral relativism, but because my first instinct should be to find feminist women in Islamic countries or with that background whose voices I can amplify, rather than assuming that I can understand and accurately represent their experiences of oppression. This anxiety comes from valuable lessons learned, and it doesn't mean that Western feminists refuse to engage with feminist issues around the world. This anxiety helps my feminism. It should improve my feminism. It does not paralyze it, as critics of feminism assume. So that, for God's sake, you don't have to take my word for it. That was a shout out to Atheism 101.
I was going to say,
I love
Tim
them.
would appreciate that.
I'm going to direct you to some feminists dealing with these issues in a thoughtful way. So here are some sources if you're really interested in what's going on. Transnational Feminism in the United States, Knowledge, Ethics, and Power by Leila Fernandez. This is a particularly good source if you're interested in how women in the United States are engaged in remedying the oppression of women around the globe, something you say isn't happening. Again, it's Transnational Feminism in the United States by Leila Fernandez. There is a work called Navigating Sociospatial Difference, Constructing Counterspace, Insights from Transnational Feminist Praxis. I'm not going to make the joke about the Klingon moon.
Please.
Okay, I just did.
It's
that
not
work
the Klingon moon.
That work is by Dempsey Parker. I can't resist every time. I know.
You cannot
I'm going to
resist.
try.
That's what she said.
Dempsey, Parker, and Chrome.
Gotta be careful with Praxis. It was half destroyed.
All right, one more. Not another moon.
That's what she said.
That's what he likes to show.
Okay. There's a work called Transnational Feminisms by Valentine McAdam.
That
Excuse
is an
you.
awesome name.
It is, isn't it? So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that maybe you just didn't know how to Google search transnational feminism. You didn't know the right search terms to find all of this out. So I'll do it for you as evidence of the work feminists do to redress patriarchal oppression across the globe, and specifically in Muslim cultures. This is my participation. I'm going to Google for you.
Let me Google that for you. We'll put a let me Google that for you in the show notes.
I'm going to give you some background, and then I'll give you a list of organizations that are doing this work that supposedly isn't happening.
Oh.
So this background section is from Valentine McAdam's work, and I'm going to directly quote. It's kind of a long quote for the next little bit, but it gives you a very succinct sort of history of the development of transnational feminism and how these organizations that connect women in the United States with women around the globe formed and why they formed. Okay? Here we go. This is quoting.
Ready, go.
A shift in the nature and orientation of international feminism began to take place in the mid-1980s during preparations for the third UN World Conference on Women held in Nairobi, Kenya in 1985. The shift took the form of bridge building and consensus making across both regional and ideological divides, and resulted in the emergence of a new type of women's organization, the Transnational Feminist Network, that brought together women around a common agenda and goals. Three critical economic and political developments within states and regions and at the level of the world system facilitated this development. I'm going to make this font a little bit bigger. A glass of Pinot Noir in, and it's difficult to see.
Understandable.
Okay, here are the economic and political conditions that sort of facilitated this. The transition These are macadams. Yeah,
Mahuma
I know. Okay, here it goes. Number 1, the transition from Keynesian economics, with its emphasis on government intervention for full employment and citizen welfare, to neoliberal economics, with its emphasis on free markets, privatization, and trade and financial liberalization, along with a new international division of labor that relied heavily on cheap female labor. The decline of the welfare state in much of the global north, and the poverty of many countries, especially in the global south. Both factors placed a heavy burden on women's reproductive and domestic roles. The third point, the emergence of various forms of fundamentalist and right-wing religious movements that threatened women's autonomy and human rights. And this book, by the way, as an aside, does a really great job of talking both about Christian fundamentalism and Islamic fundamentalism as being problematic for women's rights.
And this information will be in the show notes.
I'm going to make some show notes.
Probably.
I bet she doesn't make it before we leave.
I'll try really hard. Okay, so still quoting here. The economic and political realities of these global changes led to a convergence of feminist perspectives. Feminists in the richer developed, air quotes, nations, found themselves focused on economic issues at the same time that those from developing, air quotes, countries were directing their attention to women's legal status, autonomy, and political rights. This encouraged the formation of a number of alliances that brought women together in response to economic pressures and to movements limiting women's rights. Out of these alliances, transnational feminist networks, TFNs, were born. By the 1990s, TFNs were engaged in policy-oriented research, advocacy, and lobbying around issues pertaining to women and development and women's human rights. Many individuals who formed or joined TFNs were scholar activists who had been, and in some cases continue to be, involved in the gender and development research community. So that's your history of transnational feminist networks. The
TFNs, not to be
TFNs.
confused with TTFNs, which is Tata for now.
That's a thing?
Yes, it's from Winnie the Pooh when Tigger says TTFN, Tata for now.
Tata for now.
Yep.
Oh.
It's also
That's
chat speak. So, you know.
Okay, cool. All right. TFNs, transnational feminist networks.
Yes.
I have a list of them.
Oh, tell us about that.
I'm going to read you some of them because apparently they don't exist. I would like you to know that they do exist.
They do exist.
Development Alternatives with Women for a New Era, DAWN. Women's Environment and Development Organization, Women in Development Europe. Listen to this one. Women Living Under Muslim Laws. Feminist doing something about oppression in Muslim countries. What do you know?
You know, fancy that.
Who knew that existed? World Beagle.
Thanks, Cabana Boy.
I missed something. You're going to fill me in on that joke later, aren't you? Okay. World March of Women. There's one called Global Sisterhood Network.
Awesome.
So I'm probably leaving some out. In fact, I know I'm leaving a lot of them out, but I want to finish with one in particular called WLP, Women's Learning Partnership for Rights, Development, and Peace, because this gives you, just looking at their board of directors, gives you a good idea of what a transnational feminist network is, how it includes women from across the globe, and the type of work that's being done. So I'm going to butcher some of these names, and I apologize in advance. Manaz Akfami is founder and president of the Women's Learning Partnership. She was born in Iran and now lives in the U.S. Layla Ahmed, professor of women's study and religion at Harvard, is from Egypt and now resides in the U.S. Abina Busia is from Rutgers. Marian Wright Edelman is founder and president of the Children's Defense Fund. She's on the board. There is someone named Yakan Ertuk, who's from Turkey, Barbara Phillips from the U.S., Anne Elizabeth Meyer from UPenn in the U.S., and Thoraya Obayed, Jacqueline Pentagway, one from Saudi Arabia, one from Brazil, and a woman named Inger Elizabeth Prebensen from Norway. The point of reading that entire list was to show you a couple of things. One, there are women from the U.S., because that's usually what they're talking about when they're talking about feminists who don't do anything, who are deeply involved in issues that affect women in Muslim countries. But guess what? The board of Women's Learning Partnership is ran by an Iranian woman who lives here in the U.S. So this shows us that Western feminism is a problematic construct, right? These women have lived and worked in the U.S. for many years. Some of the women are American citizens. So by saying that Western feminists aren't interested in Muslim women's oppression, you're either refusing the label of Western to all but white natural born citizens, like you're a racist and these women don't matter, even though they've been in the United States for a very long time. Or even if some of these women living in the U.S. refuse the label of Western for political or identity reasons, your statements that feminism doesn't or cannot do this work erases these people who are actually doing that work. And when you do this nonsense, I hate to tell you, your ignorance is showing. Cover that shit up.
Oh, what? Where?
Your ignorance is showing.
Oh,
Cover
no.
it up.
Well, I know of two very good feminist activists that you've left off the list completely.
No, you don't. I know you don't. Don't even say it, penis gallery.
Misbehaving and Demeter Wright.
Hey, I know this show that all of those people could be on to talk about transnational feminist
They don't want to talk to us. Trust me.
things. Oh, come on. They totally would. We're awesome. And we drink wine.
Well, that's what was wrong with this
We
segment.
obviously have good taste.
Okay. So we can conclude this segment by saying that this argument about liberalism run amok being shifted onto feminism is re-fucking-donkulous.
Oh,
That's my insightful, intelligent statement about it.
I would never have guessed.
So I understand where some of this is coming from. Sometimes women get it wrong. Sometimes feminists get it wrong. Imagine that. But to use those instances of when we get it wrong to deny all the times we get it right is just downright malicious.
Yeah. And you know what happens when we get it wrong? We make a correction, fucking correction segment,
Oh, yes.
because we are glad to recognize when we're wrong and to say it out loud.
Believe it or not, like I know you wouldn't know this about me, but I get a lot of stuff wrong frequently.
Aw.
And I have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And you have to
That happens.
put your big girl pants on.
Sometimes you read your lines and the sketches wrong, and we have to do it again.
Then sometimes you just have to adjust the
Sometimes-
thongs and go at it.
Sometimes you just have to. Sometimes
I
you
do
just
have a
have to
wedgie
deal
at
with
the
it.
moment, by the way.
Oh well, we should end this so you can fix that.
But at least
it's
if
time for
I'm
the-
digging in my ass crack, no one will see it.
I
will.
think it's time for the safe word. Bananas in pajamas. God's not paying attention like he does.
Coming
Bananas.
downstairs.
Stop
In
looking at the
pajamas,
porn.
coming down the stairs, looking up. Serious. Bananas.
That was a segment. You can find our episodes on iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, and you can plug our RSS feed into your favorite podcast apps such as Podcast or Podbean. Our RSS feed can be found on our website, which is promotingsecularfeminism.com. On social media, you can find us on Facebook.com/promotingsecularfeminism and Twitter, we're at secularfeminism. If you'd like to contact us, you can leave us a comment on our website, get in touch on Facebook or Twitter. Or you can email us at promotingsecularfeminism@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you with any questions, comments, or corrections you might have. Talk to your local feminist to find out if promoting secular feminism is right for you. If after listening to this episode you experience butt hurt for more than 4 hours, consult your physician. This does not include the after effects of being fucked in the ass because you love Jesus.
Welcome to Titillating Topics. I'm Miss B. Haven, and today we're going to be talking about asexuality.
Oh, sorry.
No.
That was last time.
Oh, sorry.
Actually, I don't think there's ever been a time when we've talked about
but in the next segment,
breasts or
or at the
tits
end of the
or
show, we're going to
boobies.
talk about lasers coming out your breast.
Lasers, yes. In the sketch later on, there will be lasers and
Wait
breasts.
for it.
It's great. You should stick around. So, it has come to my attention. Thank God damn it. What are you doing over there?
Are you showing
God's breasts
lasers
are
out of
shooting
nipple?
lasers at us right now. Just imagine that.
Little finger replicated lasers.
Out his
It has
nipples.
come to my attention
That's what he said.
that I have not yet covered a subject with which some and or many possibly of our listeners may identify, which is asexuality.
It's been a problem on this podcast because we talk sexy sexiness.
It's because many of us, probably most of us, identify as sexual. And part of sex positivity is recognizing that we all have differing sexual and romantic needs and desires, and it's important that we respect and accept ourselves and each other, and to celebrate these differences, stopping short of those things that are illegal or non-consensual, as we cannot in good conscience condone those things.
No.
I'm not trying to speak for asexuals here. Please remember that. But rather, I'm trying to learn more about the spectrum of sexual orientation.
Ooh, what did you find out?
There's a spectrum. Asexual to demisexual to sexual and everything in between. But there's also romantic orientation. There's such things as aromantic, demi-romantic, and romantic. Or you could also say aromantic, demi-romantic, and pan-romantic, as well as asexual, demisexual, and pansexual.
Do we need to be clear here? And
was
when
gonna
we
say-
say a, we mean the Latin prefix not.
I was getting ready to say
Yes,
because
yes, we do mean the Latin prefix not.
for some reason I'm
for
thinking of
pan-
Hercules and Perseus too.
For pan, we do mean the prefix many,
Okay.
or all would also be a good translation of that. So
We're on it.
we need to recognize, first of all, that these are legitimate identities, and I'm just from my point of view trying to attempt to communicate what I've learned so far to the audience of this show. So if I get something wrong,
Dear listeners.
please, dear listeners, please correct me. We'll do a fucking correction segment, and we'll be so happy to do so, because I'd
And
rather
we'll have you on the show.
know that somebody's listening enough to be able to tell me that I'm wrong, rather than nobody listening
I
or
tell
paying
you
attention.
all the time, but you just ignore me.
Yes, that's true, because you're
No,
wrong.
I try to be supportive. I'm a supportive co-host.
This is the most bickery episode we've ever had. It's even in the sketch, guys. It's even in the sketch. We're like, stop this bickering. We have to
We're
do
going
things.
to drink more wine and make up.
Yes, that's true.
It'll be fun.
We have what are we drinking tonight?
A Pinot Noir.
Pinot Noir. That's very nice.
It's got penis in it.
It is
So-
lovely though.
The reason that I'm trying to do this segment, trying being the key word, is that because when you have a platform like this with which to communicate to a group of people
Stand on it,
who
Miss B.
might be
Just
listening and paying attention,
Stand on it.
it should be used for the good of others and to educate those around you.
She has a dream.
Yes, she
No,
does.
I'm not appropriating MLK's
Okay,
speech
sorry.
for this.
Sorry about it.
Unlike the people at Reason Rally, I'm not into that. So, asexuality. It's been a known entity in research since as early as the 1940s, though very little research has actually been done about it, which is unfortunate because it's a very interesting topic. And I think we have a lot to learn from
yes.
studying asexuality as a whole.
I remember something.
What is that?
This episode of House, the medical show with the crabby doctor.
Yeah. And how there were asexual people on it, but then House was
Yes.
like, there's
That
something wrong
doesn't
with them, blah, blah,
exist.
blah.
Yes, they just
And
have a
then
medical condition.
By
We
the
have
end of
to
the
fix
episode,
them.
then it turned out there was something medically wrong with him.
And the
wife
woman
was like, I was just
decided-
pretending.
Yeah, she was just pretending.
Bullshit.
Asexuality wasn't
That
a thing.
happens a lot in
Yeah.
media. And it's our opportunity and our jobs, I would even argue, to educate people about the fact that it's not just something you're pretending with. It's the same idea as like bisexuality and homosexuality and that sort of thing, where you're not just having a phase, you're not just pretending. It's not just like a hormonal condition or a psychological condition. This is a legitimate identity that needs to be recognized and celebrated instead of erased.
I'm in a Southern ladies who lunch phase. Ladies who drink their lunch with
Okay.
pearls on phase.
Is that your is
That's
that
my
your
identity.
identity now? Okay.
Yes.
All right. I can dig it.
Anyway, I shop at
So-
Target too. You know that.
The fact that there has been little research done about asexuality may very well contribute to the erasure that many people who identify as asexual may experience in everyday life, including portrayals in the media and that sort of
Yes,
thing.
like
because
that
there's so
damn
much
episode in
misunderstanding
House.
and myths about asexuality. Moving on to throughout history, while the Kinsey numbering scale for sexuality rated hetero to bi to homosexualities, there was a separate category for asexuality, which Kinsey defined as, quote, no sociosexual contacts or reactions, unquote. And that is actually a pretty accurate description of what asexuality is. Asexuality.org defines asexual as, quote, a person who does not experience sexual attraction.
So this is different than like low libido.
Libido. Yes, it is different because people with low
Fuck the Pinot Noir.
people with low libido actually want to and have
Correct
those
that.
cravings for sexual experiences.
Right.
But people who are asexual do not necessarily find any fulfillment or enjoyment from that experience because they don't crave the same sort of sexual experience.
And so they could have sexual, like consensual sexual interactions, but it wouldn't be
for their pleasure. It would be for the pleasure of their partner.
okay. That makes sense.
So, according to an article in Wired called Young, Attractive, and Totally Not Into Having Sex, asexuality.org started, quote, in 2001 when a Wesleyan University student named David J. created a website called the Asexual Visibility and Education Network. It started as a repository of information about all things asexual. When forums were added a year later, members started trickling in, and by 2004,
Members trickled. Really?
there were
that's
1,000.
This is an asexual segment.
Today, there are some 80,000 registered users. One of our listeners is actually
None
the
of
person.
my jokes work in this segment.
No,
All
they
of my
don't.
jokes. This is okay.
She said something about Dick Trickle.
I know. I have to. I did. That didn't work in this segment. I'm gonna have to have asexual jokes. I'm
Okay.
gonna work on that.
You should work on that. One of our listeners actually was the one who suggested that I do this segment
We
and
have
had
a
some
listener?
very helpful insights into asexuality. We have several listeners, apparently.
3.
Okay. This person said, quote, asexuality isn't celibacy. It's still possible to feel some sexual things. The basic idea is that she's not sex-driven, sex-attracted or anything, but will have and do sexy things with her partner. This quote in particular I really liked. They said, quote, I might not eat the fetish sandwich I make, but I'll use the kinks they like and make them the best damn sandwich. Thanks for using the feminists in the kitchen making sandwiches joke. That was pretty great.
That was a tasty sandwich.
So they also
that sandwich wasn't stale at all.
I know, it was a great sandwich.
It's a great sandwich.
And it's a very thoughtful and considerate way to be with a partner, because if you don't feel necessarily the same drive sexually as your partner might, it's about giving your partner the things that they need.
Though, that there would be asexual people who only want to partner with other asexual people because they're not interested in ever doing sexy things.
I'm sure it's possible. And in fact, it's probable.
I mean, that would be the thing that makes them most fulfilled, right? Would be to celebrate their asexual identity. So
to some extent, to some people, it would make you just as fulfilled to fulfill the sexual needs of your partner.
Okay.
Whether or not you're necessarily into those. I mean, that's very similar to the way that people are with their fetishes or their kinks.
I know Mr. Wright has a lot of fantasies. He
Like,
doesn't ever.
you
get
may
them
not be
fulfilled.
into the same
No,
thing
I
that Mr. Wright is into, but you may perform some of those
Never
fantasies or fetishes
No.
for his pleasure, even though you're totally not into it.
It's all about my pleasure. I'm a
Whereas he may
radical feminist.
be involved in some of the fetishes and kinks that you're into only because you're into it, not because he's into it or gets anything from it.
I don't have fetishes, and I only get kinks in my pearls.
Well, that's fine.
Especially when they're up her butt.
Hey,
To explain this a little bit better, our listener had said, quote, when I see a super pretty woman, my first thought is how I want to be there for her. I want to hold her. I want to be there with her and be a couple.
Ooh, snuggle
So
time.
they said, quote, asexuality means I don't get sexual advertisement. that the ideas and romance around sexy times is much more important than anything else. So it's about the ideas, the romantic part of things, unless
you could be
are
an asexual aromantic.
Yes, in which case the romantic part of things is not really your style either.
I hear people who are, and this is just like anecdotal, so I could be completely off the wall, and you can send me corrections if you need to, who are romantic and only into the romance aspect and not the sex aspect. So I'm assuming there is as many different kinds of sexuality as there are people. So there would be aromantic asexuals.
Absolutely.
Well, this may show my ignorance about this as well, but is there anything that may have to do with being an asexual? Does it have anything to do with your libido dropping?
No.
Or just the
No,
way you
that
feel?
is
We
a
already
myth.
covered
That's
that.
what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yep.
You're behind.
I am.
It's
You're
an identity,
flaccid
not
over there in
a
the-
state of psychological or physical being.
Thank you for catching me up.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I was researching
You
for
made me
Demanda.
forget my question.
That's good. You didn't need it.
Yes, I did need it.
I really wish I had the
Okay,
article
what is this?
about myths of
What does aromanticism
Asexualities.
look like that's also, because I understand, like the way I understood it was aromanticism in the concept of like, I'm not interested in romantic relationships, which usually to me read as like I'm into sexual relationships, but never romantic relationships. So what would an asexual, aromantic relationship be like?
it would be more like a friendship or like a platonic friendship, or even to the point of being more of a familial understanding of each other.
Well, that's a really informative way to put it.
Yeah, thank you. I read a comic about that today on everydayfeminism.com that was very helpful. It was about myths about asexuality, and it included some information about aromantic that was very helpful.
Informative. Thank you, Miss B.
You're welcome. So, speaking of everydayfeminism.com, they posted an article that was called 6 Actual Facts About What It Means to Be Asexual, and I'll have the link in the show notes. To summarize, let's look at the points that they made. First, asexuality is an identity. It's not a state of psychological or physical being.
Right.
It's an identity.
Yeah, I love the saying, if someone tells you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
And like often that's a statement that's read as, if someone gives you like an indication of something negative about their personality, believe them. But I think it's also true that if someone is telling you who they are, just believe them.
Yeah. Instead of saying that it's
Like they don't
something
have
they
to
made
prove it
up,
to you.
or it's a phase, just say, okay, cool. That's fine. Whatevs. Do you. You do you.
But us feminists, we never have any evidence or proofs about anything.
So number 2 on those points in that
I really
article.
enjoyed proofs in geometry class. It was fulfilling.
You would.
I did.
So number 2 was asexuality is a spectrum of sexuality in and of itself. And we kind of talked about that a little bit, about asexual to demisexual to sexual, and sexual, which can also include pansexual.
I just like the word demi.
Demi is nice. You must like Demi more then.
She was sexy. Is sexy, I'm assuming,
say.
still yet. I haven't seen her in a while.
Probably. Yeah.
G.I. Jane.
I imagine she would age well. I don't know if that's just me, but I imagine that she would probably,
Yeah.
she's got a very young looking face.
And body.
Not to say that you have to be young looking
Oh,
to be
Miss
attractive.
B was
Wait a minute.
ageist.
I sure was.
We should move on this segment before we get ourselves in
So
trouble.
number 3 was asexuality is different from romantic feelings. There's the spectrum of romantic feelings versus sexuality. And we just talked about that a little bit. Number 4 was asexuality is a challenge to how we define intimate relationships. And I think that's a really interesting part of it, especially when we see, depictions of asexuality in the media. There's so much media that revolves around the plot device of sexuality. And
When are they going to do it?
it's very difficult to find examples of asexuality in media. Not to mention positive examples of asexuality.
Yeah, like not having sex is always a problem in media.
That's
Yeah.
because sex sells.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, to everybody except for asexuals who
Exactly.
go like, this sex scene is about as interesting as changing out the engine on a car to people who are not into cars.
Exactly.
Like, I'd be sitting there going,
I really like the engine noises, though. Like a deep rumble really does it for me. But go ahead.
well, then you must not be a car sounds.
No, I'm not a car sound.
Though I'm pretty sure that's not a thing.
You never know.
Oh, it is a thing. Trust me, you can sit on the hood of those cars.
Oh, gosh.
They rumble and vibrate, and there's a deep tone.
Number 5 on the list
nice.
was asexuality is not a mental or pathological disorder.
There's a whole porn thing where, this isn't appropriate for an asexual segment, but where people are doing it, like, on vehicles.
You do not realize how hard that hurts me, too. I cannot do that. Working on cars, no. Mm-mm.
You might dent them or stain them or something. He gets really upset about that. No sexy time in or around the vehicle.
And lastly on this list was asexuality is not the same thing as having a low sex drive or being celibate, abstinent, or never having had sex.
So the
Mr.
libido
Right.
never comes in.
The libido doesn't even come into play.
That makes sense.
And, you could have a very high libido and be asexual.
That makes sense.
Really?
So, I mean, it's possible to have a very high libido, especially
you would
like
experience-
fantasizing about wanting to have sex and thinking about, sexual experiences. But then if you get involved with a partner, you could like throw your hands up and scream and run out of the room.
Okay. So fantasy would be fulfilling, but never the reality.
It's very possible.
Okay. That makes sense.
So it certainly opens up a lot of new avenues of expression that we don't necessarily talk about a lot.
Which we should have thought about already, but somehow
it
all
seems
of
so
our jokes
obvious
are
after
about-
you hear about it, and then you go, well, now I feel completely
now I feel
ridiculous.
like a ding dong.
A ding dong. So there was another list on everyday feminism that I thought I should bring up, which was 5 things you can do right now to support the asexual youth in
Okay,
your
I'm ready.
life.
Let's do it.
So this is like how to be an ally kind of thing. So this is
Yes.
taken directly from everydayfeminism.com, and feel free to
I like
chime
that
in.
site.
Number 1, include asexuality in sex education for youth. Quote,
There you go.
abstinence is not a decision not to act on sexual feelings that you have for reasons such as safety, religious values, wanting to focus on other aspects of your life, and so on. Asexuality is a lack of sexual desire, unquote. So that really clears things up from the get-go. Understanding these identities and spectrums from a young age will help other people be more understanding and open to these identities and to each other, accepting each other for who they are rather than
that was
accusing
never
them of
a
being
part
something
of
they're not.
any type of sexual education that I ever had, and it really should have
Me
been
neither.
because it was extremely heteronormative, like penis and vagina. That was kind of the extent of it.
Yeah,
I think it
frankly,
still
I'm
is,
surprised that most of mine wasn't abstinence only stuff because I grew up in a very conservative part of Michigan. So
Well, one of my students is talking to me about the sex class that they had within the last couple of years, and one of the things that they're describing is like positions, love making, babies, all this other stuff. But they don't explain like asexual, bisexual, transsexual. They don't get into any of the other things. So kids are not being completely informed.
very useful stuff for
Exactly.
identifying themselves.
Exactly. So they don't have the identifying labels telling them about those. So it is coming from a direct heterosexual kind of
There's still so much
education.
heteronormativity in sexual education, and especially
In the penis gallery.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And even feminism. I mean, the word feminism being gendered can be problematic in itself unless we talk about these things and
call it
start
womanism.
to. Even then, I mean, that's an argument that people use for egalitarianism, is that it's a non-gendered term. But if the goals are the same, then ultimately it shouldn't matter.
True.
But that's a whole different segment. So things we can just
don't get me started on the egalitarians.
things you can do to
schmarianism.
support the asexual youth in your life. Number 2 was recognize youth's asexual identities and relationships. Quote, for extra points, let them know that some people just aren't into sex at all, and that's totally normal and healthy aspect of human sexual diversity, unquote. Which is what we were saying. Like,
It's
kids
totally
need to know
healthy
that
and
this is
normal
okay.
to be into sex as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I think it's good for youth to know that there is a spectrum there.
Right.
So if they are very, very sexual as a kid, it's good to know that that is a normal part of growing up. But if they are asexual as a kid, it's good to know that that's a normal part of their life too, and that sexuality can be very fluid and that they can change over time. And that brings us to the next point. Understand that sexuality is fluid. Quote, why is it so important to acknowledge the fluidity of sexuality? Because that's what enables you both to affirm someone's current identity and to support them if their identity changes later, unquote, which is almost certainly going to happen in your lifetime. I mean, if you live long enough, you're going to get to the point where you go, I'm much more interested in other things than sex.
Yeah, but isn't that different though? Because that would be a product of like a decreasing libido.
Yes, possibly. But it may also be just that your priorities sexually change to the point where you're much more interested in the romantic side of things rather than being at all into sexuality at that point. It's possible to change those things, and it's important to know when that happens with yourself as well as with others. Number 4 was don't affirm youth asexuality for the wrong reasons. Quote, finally affirming...
yes, you conservative fundamentalist bigots.
Right.
Don't do that.
They say in the article, quote...
like
affirming,
all women are not asexual.
Right. Quote, asexuality, affirming asexuality because you believe that it's wrong for teens to have sex isn't actually that affirming, unquote. Because... yeah.
No.
I mean, that's like saying, oh, thank goodness you're not going to be having sex so you won't get STDs or pregnant or whatever. That's such bullshit.
Or the long history of women not being sexual creatures.
Yeah. Yep. And by the way, there's also shorthand for asexuality, which is called ACE.
Ooh.
And people who identify as asexuals may also go by ACEs.
Okay.
So at this last point in that article said, promote ACE visibility in the media.
Do we know any ACEs? We have ACE listeners.
We do. We have at least one ACE listener, if not 2. I believe there was another person who had suggested talking about asexuals on the show. So we have at least 2 ACE listeners.
Very cool.
And speaking of asexual visibility in the media, here are some examples of media which might help you to further understand asexuality and asexuals. Yes?
I know one.
Demanda.
Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes in the novels.
Yes.
The movies and TV show have not been so helpful in identifying Sherlock Holmes as asexual.
Yeah, not when it's like Robert Downey Jr. sexy pants.
Well, it's not so much that they're sexy. It's that they get portrayed as...
It's harder for me to see it. I know. That's wrong. I'm trying.
And
he had a love interest at one time.
Particular... yeah, that's the thing, is that if there's a love interest or if there's a sexual interest, then it's not really paying homage to the book character as much as it could be. There is a book that I am actually really interested in reading, and I found out about today, which is called The Invisible Orientation: An Introduction to Asexuality by Julie Sandra Decker. It has been a Lambda Literary Award 2014 finalist in LGBT nonfiction. It got the Forward Reviews Indie Fab Book of the Year 2014 finalist in Family and Relationships. Independent Publisher Book Awards 2015 Silver Medal in Sexuality and Relationships.
Read it.
And Next Generation Indie Book Awards 2015 winner in LGBT.
There's a long reading list after this show. Between Feminism 101 on Transnational Feminism and your recommendations for asexuality, like you've got work to do, dear listeners.
Yes, there is a lot to talk about and to read about, which is partially why this show is so cool.
And a lot to link.
I learn a lot about things in this show. So the invisible orientation, as it says in the overview, quote, Julie Sandra Decker outlines what asexuality is, counters misconceptions, provides resources, and puts asexual people's experiences in context as they move through a very sexualized world.
I'm definitely going to read that because I feel like I'm propagating all kinds of misconceptions, and I need to work on that.
Absolutely. I am very interested in reading that too. So I may get that on my Kindle and loan it to you sometime.
Yes, let's do that. And then we can talk about it some more. Like after we've read it, we can talk about what we've learned.
We'll do a book review.
That's
and
great.
maybe get the author on the show.
That would be amazing. So I wanted to find some examples of asexuals and asexuality in media, because there are not that many, because sexuality, again, is used as kind of a crux for the plot in so many different mediums.
All the vampire movies.
Right. One example that is...
We're not going to do it, but we really want to do it. But you might eat me if we do it. But ooh, that could be a good thing. Like that's the entire plot.
That's vampires for you. The character Dorothy Hare in George Orwell's The Clergyman's Daughter is suspected to be asexual. Dexter Morgan in Jeff Lindsay's Darkly Dreaming Dexter, the novel series on which the TV series Dexter was based. The character in the novels is asexual, even though the TV show character may not be. Sherlock Holmes, again, in the novels, is generally considered asexual. Whereas, to give you another example, James Bond from the novels may generally be considered aromantic.
Okay, here's one thing though. I think like a problematic depiction of even asexuality in novels is often that it's symptomatic, in air quotes, of extreme intellectualism, as if intellectualism isn't like sexy, or as if people who are asexual aren't emotional. Like that's all highly problematic.
Yes. However, there is an example I have on this list that is not highly intellectualized. Okay. Which is Rose, Betty White's character on Golden Girls.
Oh, that's very true.
Who, quote, never thought about sex before she was married, and when her husband wanted to have sex for the first time, she didn't really understand sexual desire. She has never orgasmed, according to show canon. Yeah. She is not really into sex and sexuality. So it's not necessarily just symptomatic of this intellectualism. And
I don't know. That was kind of presented though, and I love my Golden Girls. That was kind of presented though as symptomatic of her naivete, the way in which she was not informed on any issue, the way in which she's, a Southern lady who lunches instead of like getting dirty under the table.
Wait, Rose is the one who was from like Wisconsin or something, and she was a farm girl. She knew what sex was. I mean, if you grew up on a farm, you know what sex is. It's breeding. If you grow up around animals, you're going to know what sex is.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr.
All
Wright.
right. So maybe I'm wrong about this.
You're thinking of the other one.
Bestiality.
Betty White's character, right? Am I thinking about the wrong one?
Betty White's character was the very innocent one. Although I have to say that she does
Rose
present
was the
as very naivety.
sexy one.
No. You're thinking
that was
of Blanche.
Blanche.
Yeah, you're thinking of Blanche.
Oh, I need to watch my Golden Girls.
Blanche
again.
is sexual.
Yes, Blanche is the sexy
probably pansexual.
Rose was she was the one that was presented as naive about everything, though.
Yeah. But I will argue that if she was on a farm, which she claimed to have been, growing up on a farm and living on a farm, then she knows what sex is.
This is getting really deep into the Golden Girls.
Okay, this is Golden Girls lore. So Ellen Page's character in Inception, Ariadne, is suspected to be asexual.
Okay. It sounds like we're getting into cougar talk. We're getting deep into the Golden Girls.
Cougar talk. If you're Blanche was a cougar.
The Doctor in Doctor Who could arguably be asexual.
No,
because
that's not true.
There are romantic relationships, but there are not necessarily sexual relationships.
Was he not presented as pansexual, though?
But the Doctor didn't have to be male or female.
That was
either.
Jack. That was Captain Jack, who was pansexual.
I know Captain Jack was pansexual, but you're telling
the Doctor could be panromantic.
Okay.
And
all
still
right.
asexual.
The Doctor never had to be male or female, but he always ends up being male for some reason.
Aren't there like lines where he's talking about sexual encounters?
It's sort of implied, but it's never really like explicitly saying that there was any sort of sexual activity involved. So it's kept very you'd really have to have like
That was a big
that
gulp
already.
of Pinot Noir there. I feel
You'd
like you
really
just
have to
hurt
make
my
a
gulp.
pretty big leap to make it sexual.
Really?
Because it's a kids show.
Okay. All right. You know
But
what? This
the
is probably a
novelizations
symptom
may change
of
that somehow.
my sexuality, and that I see sexuality in things that don't include sexuality, that I don't see asexuality in media.
Look at us. We're learning things about ourselves, like that we see sexuality in everything because we are very sexual.
That's
Whereas
true. I'm
asexual
reading it.
people would go, that's not sexual at all. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm getting this now.
And also, which this brings up the intellectualism thing again. Big Bang Theory's Sheldon Cooper has also expressed asexual tendencies. And that's yet another example of the whole intellectualism means less sexual presentation. So that is all the information that I have for this segment today.
That was
Do you
a lot
guys
of really great information.
Yes, it was.
And
Do
when
you
you
have
get
any
a copy of that book,
questions?
please let me know.
Yes, I will. I am very interested in reading that because I had no idea about like most of this information. Thank you so much to those of you who contributed to this segment. I would love to talk about it even more. So if you have any questions, please feel free to comment on this on the website or email us at promotingsecularfeminism@gmail.com.
Delete dick joke here.
Bananas.
I made an asexual joke.
That is a bananas
Bananas?
bananas joke. Women are increasingly living religion-free lives and embodying the values of humanism and skepticism in their activism and professional work. There is an upcoming Women in Secularism conference. This will be the fourth of its kind, which will bring together a diverse lineup of speakers to address what it means to be a woman in secularism, not just in theory, but in practice. Come be a part of this important conversation. It will be September 23rd through the 25th, 2016 in Arlington, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. And this conference is proudly presented by the Center for Inquiry. If you want to find out more information, visit womeninsecularism.org. And we are hoping that we might be able to get a Miss Behaven and Demand a Right out there. So definitely check that out.
Hey everybody, this is Andrew Garber from the Atheist Roundtable podcast. Find the Atheist Roundtable on Blog Talk Radio, or you can find the fan page for the Atheist Roundtable on Facebook. I'm here to tell you about the most amazing event coming to us in 2017. It's going to happen on April 21st and 22nd. It's going to happen at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Hickory, North Carolina, and it is ReasonCon 3. ReasonCon is the most amazing event that you will ever see. It is so freaking awesome. Already, we have amazing speakers lined up for ReasonCon 3, like Lawrence Krauss, Matt Dillahunty, Aaron Raw, and Callie Wright will all be at ReasonCon 3. So many more people will be there. Just go to reasonnc.com so that you can be the first to know when people are added to that roster. Every year, ReasonCon is the time when you can meet some of your favorite podcasters, and I can guarantee you that ReasonCon 3 will be no exception to that. I can almost guarantee that people like the Atheist Avengers will be there, that Promoting Secular Feminism will be there, that that No Religion Required will be there, that the Barroom Atheist will be there, the Atheist Roundtable, that's me, I'll definitely be there, and I know that so many more podcasters that you know and love are going to come back to ReasonCon 3. In the past, we've had amazing podcasters that I'm sure are all going to come back and be part of this amazing event. Go to reasonnc.com to make sure that you can find out when your favorite podcaster gets on that roster. Again, ReasonCon 3, April 21st and 22nd of 2017 at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Hickory, North Carolina. You are going to love it. So get your information, because you can't get tickets yet. Get it. Go to reasonnc.com. Make sure you sign up for all the information as it comes your way. I'll see you there.
Meanwhile, at a yet-to-be-named hall of a fledgling unnamed superhero team...
Welcome, everyone. I want to thank you all for coming today. You may know me as Galaxy Woman.
We all know who you are, Galaxy Woman. Your reputation precedes you.
I thought we might introduce ourselves and go over our powers just in case. As I was saying, my super alias is Galaxy Woman. I have the powers of flight, super strength, endurance, agility, and the ability to fire gamma lasers out of my breasts.
Your breasts?
Yes, my breasts.
You shoot gamma lasers out of your breasts?
Yes.
I don't see what the big deal is. The Visionary shoots lasers out of his eyes, Laser Lass fires lasers from her hands, and Magnum Opus can shoot lightning bolts from his ass. No one ever wonders about those powers.
Like the entire boob or just the nipple?
Does it put holes in your costume every time you shoot them? Do you have a special costume that allows the gamma laser to pass without burning holes in it every time?
Inquiring minds want to know.
Simple minds want to know.
Yes, I have a special uniform of alien origin. May we move on, please? From right to left.
Oh, sure, I guess. I'm Cabana Boy. I was once just a normal teenager but was bitten by a radioactive Cabana Boy, and now I can do anything a Cabana Boy can do. I was given this amazing body, fantastic abs, a terrific tan, and I serve mojitos with a single bound.
That doesn't really sound like you have superpowers at all.
Have you ever tried flexing your ass muscles while serving a tray full of mixed drinks to some cougars?
Literal cougars?
No, like, you know, older women who like to date young, sexy men?
Then no.
Well, it's harder than it looks.
That's fine, Cabana Boy. Who's next?
I am Captain Obvious. I was born with heightened abilities of perception, which allow me to understand and articulate the self-evident.
You state the obvious.
Hey, don't try to muscle in on my turf, pretty boy.
Now, everyone. I invited everyone here today. Let's try to respect everyone and their abilities. Okay, and last but not least...
I am Weather Girl. I am a super scientist who designed a computer capable of predicting the weather at a 7% higher accuracy than any other meteorological system. While demonstrating this computer, I was ironically struck by a bolt of lightning, which gave me enhanced abilities to predict the weather.
That doesn't seem to be much of a superpower either.
Did you bring an umbrella? Well, we'll see who has the greater powers, Captain, when a storm front moves in from the east this afternoon, bringing much-needed rain into the low country.
All right. Now, if the introductions and petty bickering are over, I would like to get down to the matter at hand. The world is a scary place, and it needs help. I think we can be that help. Individually, we can only do so much, but with our powers combined, we can do so much more.
You want us to form a superhero team?
Who says you don't have any powers?
Yes, I recently purchased and renovated this old train station to serve as our headquarters.
It does have nice architecture.
We will join forces to fight for truth, justice, and the American way.
I'm in. What should we call ourselves?
Well, if we're fighting for justice, how about the Justice League?
Already taken.
Justice Society?
Taken.
How about Justice Warriors?
Ew, like social justice warriors? No way.
Why not?
Social justice warriors are stupid.
I'm not familiar with the term. Explain.
Then allow me. I'm just going to bring up Google here on my laptop.
You're right, Captain. The rest of us couldn't have done that.
Quiet, you. Social Justice Warrior, commonly abbreviated SJW, is a pejorative term for an individual promoting socially progressive views, including feminism, civil rights, multiculturalism, citation needed, political correctness, and identity politics.
That sounds like justice to me.
Social justice.
Well, society is the framework in which we live and operate.
Yes, but many see SJWs simply as individuals seeking personal validation rather than working towards any actual social justice goals.
Well, clearly it can't be the case that everyone claiming to fight for civil and progressive human rights is simply into self-aggrandizement. That's what truth, justice, and the American way really means. Anyway.
SJWs are just fascist bitches who want to control our minds.
Hey now, can we not use the B word, please?
See, you can't control my mind, you PC Nazi. I will do and say what I want.
It is an example exaggeration to call Weather Girl a Nazi.
No, she's not. She's just trying to push her politically correct fascist views on everyone.
Fascists are authoritarian nationalists who use their political power to destroy dissenting opinions.
And that's what they're doing.
She asked you not to call her a bitch. How is that using political power to destroy your opinions?
See, you're in on it too. You're trying to use your superpowers to control my brain. Well, it won't work.
Neither Galaxy Woman nor Weather Girl have used their superpowers to control your actions or your brains.
Ah, yes. But now you're using your superpowers to attempt to persuade me.
Yes, I am using facts in an attempt to persuade you that your behavior is unwarranted and possibly motivated by paranoid delusions.
I just want to use language to degrade women. Is that so wrong?
Well, yeah.
One can hardly be said to promote truth and justice while using pejoratives to minimize historically marginalized groups.
Your fancy big words have no powers over me. I have my own mind and I will use it.
Do we really need 4 founding members?
Cabana Boy, you are overreacting.
You social justice warriors say you are after truth and justice, but what you really do is control everyone. What have you ever done to promote civil rights?
I volunteer at a women's shelter every weekend.
I write a blog about social issues and help educate and inform.
I say things that are true.
Lies. You're all just a bunch of Hitlers trying to take the fun out of everything. Well, you won't control me.
He's running for the window.
He's a bit dramatic, isn't he?
It's okay. It's 3 inches of bulletproof plate glass. No way he's crashing through it.
That looked like it hurt.
Are you okay? Do you need medical assistance?
I don't need any help from fascists.
He's bleeding everywhere.
I'll get the first aid kit.
I'll call an ambulance. It appears he may have broken his nose.
Oh, there's the rain.
I left my car windows down.
Freedom!
Tune in next time when the team attempts to name their new headquarters on the next exciting episode of Social Justice Warriors.
Thanks for listening to PSF, Promoting Secular Feminism. I'm Misbehavin', keeping the Trump pence out of your underpants.
And I'm Demanda Wright, and we'll see you next Tuesday. I did. It's another episode of Promoting Secular Feminism.
Why did I get out of the drive? Because that's where my segment stuff is.
You were drunk. You should be drunk driving.
I'm not drunk. I've not had
Drunk
anything,
Google driving.
anything to drink.
You should be drunk Google driving.
You should be drunk Google driving.
That's funny.
Don't drive Google while you're drunk. You may
Yeah,
ask
that's-
something stupid.
That's a good point. Okay.
Hello.
So 25, citation needed. We ready for intro?
Scoopity doo doobity scoop scoop.
Oh my god, what are you on?
Life.
Life.